Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the first episode of Best Practice in English as a Second Language Instruction. During the next few weeks, we will be covering various aspects of best practice as exemplified in the interactions, understandings, practices, and voices of several primary school teachers. I am Kuldip Kaur, a teacher-educator at the University of Malaya, and I have with me here Lim Pek Chu, who is a lecturer at the University Technology Mara. Stay tuned, as during the next half an hour we will examine the concept of best practice as it is realized in the practices of English as a second language teachers and find its place in instructional purposes. Pek Chu, shall we begin with a definition of best practice?
Yes. Now, best practice, the term refers to the instructional, the effective, social, cultural characteristics in the classroom, as well as the characteristics of the individuals involved in the nature of teaching. In other words, best practice is synonymous with good, sound practices, as can be seen in the ways of informed practitioners. In the ESL context, English as a second language context, best practice also refers to the pre-active, interactive, as well as the post-active dimensions of teaching, as well as the nature of the tasks, the activities, and the interactions that learners are engaged in the classroom.
In other words, you are referring to certain broad principles of teaching and learning. To illustrate these points, you will see a diagram on your screen in a few moments, and we will use this diagram to further talk about and expand upon this notion of best practice. First, the definition covers a general description of the socio-emotional sphere of influence that teachers and learners bring into the classroom. For example, the professional teacher enjoys her work, and she successfully conveys this enthusiasm to her students. The teaching-learning stance that she carries circumscribes her understanding of the different learning abilities, learning styles, as well as the differing needs of her students. As a professional, she nurtures learning by being supportive of the learner's culture and by encouraging and acknowledging learners' contributions in the classrooms.
Yeah, I think you've brought in a very important point. I think a teacher should nurture the students, all right? And it is very important for the teacher to be sensitive to the differing needs and abilities of the students. So, which brings me back to another point for second practice. Best practice. Best practices also subscribe to the notion of the ever-growing awareness of the nature of teaching and learning. So it is very important for the teacher to continually upgrade himself and to to engage in ongoing discussions on professional growth and reflective practices. Now, this is important simply because it will be reflected in the interactions that he brings into the classroom.
Thanks, Pek Chu. And to summarize, I'd say that we've dealt with two very important principles, that is the socio-emotional sphere of influence, as well as the teacher's role in her own professional growth. However, we should not forget a third point, which is that the informed teacher successfully creates a student-oriented classroom by providing learning opportunities that are culturally relevant, those that are multidisciplinary, and transformational in nature. I cannot emphasize this enough because the learner has to be exposed to the target language through tasks that are challenging and tasks that encourage risk-taking. We will now look at this diagram on your screens in a moment that will illustrate these 3 points in a more accurate manner.
As you can see on the screen, best practice involves the teacher, the learner, as well as the tasks, tools, and content which are mediated. Now, in a nutshell, best practice in the ESL classroom involves knowledgeable practitioners who work purposefully toward creating a supportive learning environment in the classroom.
To provide a context for this theorizing and to show how such definitions and principles of best practice may be realized in the classroom, let us now look at one important issue, and that is the issue of student participation and how teachers can ensure active participation on the part of the students. In examining our earlier definition of best practice, student participation embodies the active involvement of learners' ideas, of student-generated language, and thirdly, culturally relevant material. In this program, we will examine the practices of two teachers, Mr. Lim and Mrs. Gowri. Mr. Lim and Mrs. Gowri are master teachers at Malaysian primary schools. In a few minutes, you will see Mr. Lim and his students from the SJKC Sin Min in a garden atmosphere.
Who can tell me the name of this flower?
I, sir.
Yes, Hisham?
It is a sunflower.
Very good, thank you. And Tekai, can you tell me the name of this flower?
I am sorry, I cannot.
Oh, it's okay. What about you, Chintek? What's the name of this flower?
Is it a canna, sir?
Yes, you are right. It is. It is a canna. And where's the morning glory? Yes, Yang Ting?
This one, sir.
That's the morning glory. Yes, this is the morning glory.
Sir,
Yes.
Is this-
Winnie?
is this the Zora?
Oh no, that is not the Izora. The Izora is over there.
Sir,
Yes.
what is the name of this small yellow flower?
Oh, this is the alamander. The alamander.
Kuldev, don't you think it's refreshing to see the class being conducted in the garden rather than a conventional classroom?
Yes, it certainly was a change for me.
Yeah, and as you can see from the video clips, Mr. Lim is encouraging his students to participate in the lesson. And the lesson is being conducted in the school garden amidst the trees, the plants, and the flowers. Now, as you can see, what Mr. Lim was trying to do was he was using the trees, the plants, and the flowers as a major source of content of his lesson. And what he did was he encouraged his students to look around, to observe, and to label the flowers, which he wanted them to learn. And now he does this through a process called guided participation. Now that means that Mr. Lim guides his students to actively participate in the lesson by talking about the flowers and by naming them orally. And the students are led to use some of the language structures such as, is this the Izora, teacher? And you see, the students were able to pick up the model that the teacher gave them earlier.
And Tekai, can you tell me the name of this flower?
I am sorry, I cannot.
Oh, it's okay. What about you, Chintek? What's the name of this flower?
Is it a canna? Sir.
Yes, you are right. It is. It is a canna.
Sir,
Yes.
Is this-
Winnie?
is this the Zora?
Oh no, that is not the Izora. The Izora is over there.
Sir,
Yes.
what is the name of this small yellow flower?
Oh, this is the alamander. The alamander.
The important thing here is that there is communication between the students and the teacher. You will see again now how Mr. Lim allows for student participation through a process of direct involvement. In a few moments, you will see how Mr. Lim's students first articulate the name of a flower, and then they have direct access to the word card on which the name of the flower is written, and finally they sing a song which includes the names of all the flowers they've learned today. Let us now look at the screen for this episode.
Next one, can you read this? Balsam. Very good. Who wants to hold the balsam card? All right, Winnie, you hold this card. And the next one is canna. Canna. Everyone say canna. Canna. Who is going to hold the... All right, you hold the canna card. And the next one is... Izora. Very good. Izora. 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 We will let her hold the Izora card. Come, girl. And last one, we have the sunflower. Everyone? Sunflower. The sunflower. Sunflower. And who holds the sunflower card? You hold. You hold. All right. And we have all the flowers that we love.
Morning glory, Izora, balsam canna, sunflower, all the flowers that we love.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Mr. Lim has used a very interesting way to get the students directly involved by getting them to sing. Don't you think it's interesting?
Yes, Victor.
Rather than the drills that we do most of the time, yeah? Now, another dimension of student participation is evidenced in the way questions are used during interactions between students and teacher. Now, in this particular case, interactive participation can be seen in the use of student-generated question as well as student responses to teacher-generated questions.
I think what we would like to highlight here is the fact that Mr. Lim carefully and meticulously expands the students' knowledge base in as far as the content of the lesson is concerned. You would notice that he models an approach whereby the students first learn about names and labels and titles of flowers, and then they learn about the flower and its color and its spelling and so on. And finally, they move on to a writing sequence whereby they actually have to move from the word level to the sentence level.
Yeah, so let us move on to the next phase of Mr. Lim's class. Now, the next few scenes will segment how Mr. Lim uses strategies for interactive participation in his classroom. Now, notice how the teacher allows for choice through a series of steps. You will see that Mr. Lim first provides a series of statements that may be used as a model or guide for student-generated statements. Then he goes through the statements and then he clarifies the task. He then makes inquiries about what each group wishes to write, providing them with a choice. His students understand the nature of the task and proceed to write collaboratively. Now, in short, Mr. Lim has successfully guided the students' participation through interactive means, and the students' interactions with the teacher, with the material, and with their peers allow them to actively participate in the task. Now, let's take a look at the video.
Cut for you here. All right. Can you see the words? Can you? Very good. I will put the cut here. And these sentences are about the salamander. So I will put salamander here. All right. Now you listen carefully. I'm going to read the description to you once. The salamander is a pretty flower. It is yellow in color. Now you are going to write 6 sentences on a flower that you like. All right, group A. Which flower would you like to write about? All right, very good. Come here, girl. Come here. Come and take the card. Come. All right, this is your card. And this is your card. And I'll give you a pen. Yes, Hisham. What flower would you like to write about? Sunflower. The sunflower. All right, which is the sunflower? This one. All right. We will give you the card. And also a manila card. All right. You must write 6 sentences. Can you do that? Yes. Okay. Those at the back, please come forward and right here. Come. Quietly, slowly. And these 6 pupils will go to the back there. Slowly, no noise. And those 6 at the back, please come forward. You can start writing now. We will give you 5 minutes to write. All right?
You see, Pekchu, how we have seen the process of direct involvement, active participation, and student involvement at work in Mr. Lim's classroom. In the next scene, you will see how another teacher, Mrs. Gowri, successfully allows for interactive participation in her classroom. Let us look at the initial part of her lesson.
So children, you can see that we have collected a lot of things, a lot of throwaway things. So I want you to use your creativity to create some useful things this morning. Can you do that? Yes. So now you can start.
Did you see the Twin Towers taking shape over there?
Yes.
And don't you think the students look enthusiastic in carrying out their tasks? I mean, an English lesson need not be a boring lesson whereby you sit behind the desk and you listen and you are not actively involved. Whereas what Ms. Gowri has done is she really got the students involved in carrying out the activity, yeah?
Yes. I think more importantly, Miss Gowri has decided to use various construction materials as a tool for direct involvement in a student's creativity. We will notice that students have the opportunity to do the following things. First, identify a model they would like to build. Two, they are able to choose the materials that are suitable for the model that they'd like to build. And finally, they are able to think about the modifications, adjustments and reformulations of the model as they go along. So when the Twin Towers are actually taking shape, they have the opportunity to modify what the final product is going to look like. In this way, we find that Mrs. Gowri involves her learners' creative spirit as well as encourages the collaboration in her classroom. After this, in a few minutes, you will see how Mrs. Gowri also gets involved in the lesson in a very direct manner. She shows her students how she too has created the model of a box, and notice how she carefully describes the procedures that she followed in making her box. Let us look at this now.
Now, I have also made something this morning to show you. I have made a compact disc holder using an empty box. Now first, I cut off the top of the box and the front. Then I used these gift wrappers to cut and put trimming on the sides to make the box look more attractive. And I also cut out flowers from the gift wrappers and I have pasted around to make the box look more attractive. Then I used the top that I cut off, and I put it at the bottom to make it strong. Now the compact disc box is ready, and I can keep my favorite compact discs in them. There you are. See? And I can put it on the table in my room.
You see, Pekchu, the significant part of Gowri's lesson and that presentation which she took part in just now is how it can be used as a supportive framework for her students to use language. The students will soon describe their own models to the rest of the class, and the teacher has successfully demonstrated to them how learners can make something the way she has done herself and how they can then talk about it in class. Let us look at some of the students presenting their work to the rest of the class.
Good morning, my fellow friends. Today, my creation is a submarine, and I have named it the Twinkle Submarine. To make a submarine, we need one big size bottle, just like the ordinary bottle, 3 empty cans, some straws, and a bottle cover, the bottle cap. The first one, and a piece of plywood. First, we put the big bottle on the plywood and fix it with a sellotape. Secondly, we take the 3 empty cans and fix it beside the bottle, like this. And you put some sellotape to get it straight to the bottle. We put besides and on the bottle.
In front.
Also, we can make the periscope. We stick the straw in the front of the can.
I do this fish using the envelope and old newspapers. The newspapers are in the envelope. I take some sellotape to do this, and I take some thread to hang it.
Don't you think it's wonderful how the students are able to use language in context? All right, I think there are a few things here in this lesson which needs to be brought up. And one, if you notice the first pair, there's two boys, they were presenting the submarine, I think it was, yeah? And how when he was presenting, the boy, when he was presenting it, he could do some self-correction. Right. Remember he said, okay, we use a bottle cover. And then he thought people didn't understand. So he corrected himself, it's a bottle cap. You see, so it's very important there. And then the other thing, I think what Gauri managed to do was to provide the opportunity for oral language use in the classroom, which is very important, all right, if you want to learn language. And also, another thing that could come up from this activity is it could pave the way for a writing activity. The students could write down the procedures when creating their models, yeah? And the other thing that you can notice over there is that interaction takes place at two levels. One is the social level where the students are talking among their peers, all right? And the other one is the cognitive level. And you find that there is a very strong interconnection between the oral and the written form. So it is important for teachers not to dichotomize the skills that they teach in the classroom. It doesn't mean that, okay, now this is an oral class, so therefore we're only going to do speaking, that's it. Well, you can see that you can actually interact the skills together. All right.
Okay.
So that's what I find interesting about Gauri's lesson.
Thank you, Picchu. Yes, I quite agree with most of what you've said. Ladies and gentlemen, you have just witnessed two class sessions, both of which actively involve student participation through a series of steps. To summarize, the effectiveness of Mr. Lim's lesson is presented in the strategies of reiteration, emphasis, repetition, reinforcement, and application. To talk about Gauri's lessons in these terms, we will notice that a fair amount of modeling was used, as well as a fair amount of language was used to think about products and processes. Both the teachers achieved this through various means, and what we talked about today, Picchu and I, were means such as guided participation, direct involvement, and interactive participation. You will notice also that Mr. Lim also modeled the output before he got his students to write their own protocols. With this, we end our first episode of Best Practices in English as a Second Language Instruction. We hope that the sessions that we have shown you would be helpful, and that this would be an informative session, and you will join us again during the next episode of Best Practices in English as a Second Language Instruction. Thank you.